Hey everyone, welcome back to Pt.3 Sparks. Today we're going to be getting back into our Behir model and we're actually going to rig it today. So once you guys are happy with your actual model, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to do Shift A and we're actually going to go down here to Armature and we're just going to do a single bone. So it will pop up wherever your origin is. So if you need to reset that, you can always hit Shift C and it'll go right back to your center. I'm just going to focus in on that, go into the side view. Now, you'll notice you can't see the bone through the mesh. So of course you could go into wireframe view, but that still kind of gets a little bit hard to see. So with your armature selected, you can go over to your armature tab and click on X-ray. And that will allow you to see it through your model. So that way you don't have to work in wireframe view and you can just see it overlaid on top of the mesh. So I want to go ahead and actually that's kind of a good spot to start. I'm just going to move it up slightly so that way we can start with it basically in between the first set of shoulders here. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees and just hit enter. So that way it's nice and flat here. I'm going to tab into edit mode. And I would like to go ahead and just stretch this first ball here to the next set of shoulders. And we're just going to do that along this whole way. So E to extrude, pull that to be in between, E to extrude, right about there, E to extrude, pull that right about there. And then because he does have a very long tail, we're going to go ahead and just hit E to extrude, and I'm just going to pull that all the way back to the very tip of his tail. Now, obviously we want way more segments than this because if we just applied a rig like this, he's going to be super rigid and it's not going to be nice and smooth or anything like that. But there's an easier way. So basically once you get your basics down, what we can do is I'm going to have this whole bone selected. I'm going to hit W and subdivide. You'll notice it just does one cut and it does let you know over here, you can just go ahead instead of hitting W subdivide multiple times, you can just up the number of cuts here. So let's just start with 6 and see how that looks. 6 is nice, but it's still not quite as divided as I would like. I'm going to go ahead and just double that. I'm going to do 12. That's actually pretty nice. So that way our tail our tail will have a much more fluid look to it when we go to pose it. And the only other thing is you'll notice that it did kind of shrink it a little bit. So the tip of our tail now doesn't have that rest of it, the bone going to the edge. So of course you could either just grab the tip of this and pull it to the end, or I'm just going to go ahead and make another bone and pull that all the way to the tip. Just like that. And just slightly adjust. Now I kind of want to do the same thing to each of these as well, because again, he's kind of snake-like, so we want him to have a very fluid look to his motions for when we go to pose him. So I'm just going to do W subdivide again with all of them selected. You'll notice again it did the number of cuts 1. It doesn't default to whatever you had in last. You don't have to worry about it doing 12 cuts on there. I wouldn't mind doing 2 cuts for them though, just because again I want it to look very nice. Now I'm going to go ahead and right click our first bone here and do E to extrude, and I'm going to pull that all the way up to the corner of his mouth. W subdivide. I'm going to do that 3 times, I think, maybe 4. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do 4. Now I am going to go ahead and hit wireframe view so that way I can see his mouth, and it did shrink a little bit, but I'm okay with this distance. Again, you know, you can certainly feel free to adjust it if you would like, but I am okay with that. So let's go ahead we're going to do E to extrude, and I'm going to pull this all the way up to the very tip of his nose. And this part doesn't need to be fluid, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as is. And then I also need it for the bottom of the mouth. So I'm going to do E to extrude and pull that all the way down. But then I want this to be a little bit different, so that way if we need to, we could also stretch out the mouth. So what I'm going to do is hit Alt P, and we're going to hit disconnect bone. So that way I can grab this and pull this down, but you'll notice that there's a dotted line here. So this bone is still parented to our neck bone here. But now we have a much better kind of set on his motion. So we could even drag this up a little bit to be more related to his actual skull and head movement, and his jaw can be a little bit more independent, but still when you move the actual head, this will come with it. So I'm going to set it up like that. And now we can do his legs, which is going to be a little bit similar. So what we'll do, I'm going to go into top view. I'm just going to start here. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one, hit E to extrude. We're going to pull that out. And again, I'm going to hit Alt P and disconnect bone and drag that out. Now it's actually set up in position pretty good here. I dragged this out too far though, and I need to drag it down. Let me push this out a little bit more. E to extrude. Pull that all the way down to the ankle and then pull it out. Go into top view. We didn't really do anything that way, actually. So that's pretty good. And then we can do E to extrude so that we have a nice separated ankle. And then if you really want, you could even do the toes. So we'll do E to extrude. And of course you could do separated bones, so you could do the Alt P, disconnect them. I'm not going to rig the nails. You could get very intricate with this if you really wanted to. I'm not going to, just because it's not going to be animated or anything. He is going to just be posed and set to be printed. So I'm not too concerned with having this armature totally precise. I'm just gonna do E to extrude. Just enough where, actually, yeah, that one I do want to go ahead and disconnect. So I'm gonna do Alt P. I think I'll go ahead and just disconnect them. That way it just lines up a little better. There we go. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and we're going to select all of our bones. It might be a good idea to start renaming first though. So you'll notice it says bone 36. When we go into weight paint, which again, I'll just describe later, that's going to be pretty generic and it's going to be like, what bone is that? It's ridiculous. So we're going to do arm, and this is his left side. So I'm going to do L. And this will be the first one, so we're just going to do that, and we're going to do upper. Arm L upper. Arm L lower. Arm L ankle. Whoops. Arm L thumb. Arm L middle. Arm L, and we'll just do pinky. Cool. So with all of them selected, I'll go ahead and just grab all of them. Actually, we could just do border select. There we go. I'm just going to go into top view, and we're just going to hit Shift D to duplicate that and pull that back to match our next set. You'll notice that it added a 0.001, and we're just going to stick with that because he has so many arms. We're just going to fly with the naming. Of course, if you want to change it, feel free to, but I am happy with having this the base, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shift D, pull this back. Shift D. And that's that. Now, I'm gonna go ahead, reselect our ones up here, do Shift D. I'm gonna pull this over here, Control M and hit X. Now that didn't quite work. Usually that works out a little bit better, but it got the basics right. So it flipped it around. It might be a little bit easier, I guess, if we just go ahead and do rotate 180. Nope. Let's go ahead and do the Control M. So Control M, X, just like that. And we can go ahead and pull these bones into position. And then we'll just have to rename everything. Like that. Where did that bone come from? Okay, so with this, it's still arm L upper 0.06. So what we want to do is we can just get rid of that number and change this to R. Get rid of the number. R lower. Oops. Angle. And the thumb. Perfect. So now all we have to do is just duplicate that again, just like we did before. So I'm just going to border select, Shift D, pull that back, Shift D, pull along the Y, and last one. All right, so now once you have it set up, go through and make sure everything is named appropriately. So that way, if you need to fix anything with the weight paints, you can do so. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this to head. jaw. Now I'm gonna do neck 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 probably. So I'm just gonna do neck 1. I usually like to do numbers going down the body. That's just the way to keep it a little bit consistent for me. Of course, feel free to do the opposite or whatever you're just comfortable with. 3. Neck 5. Okay. And then let's go ahead and start doing this as spine. So I'm going to do spine, but I'm going to go ahead and just control C that. 1. Now I know that seems kind of tedious and repetitive, possibly annoying, but trust me, if you're animating and you need your rig to be like well done and professional, you're gonna want to make sure you're always renaming your bones so that way whenever you have to do weight paints or any type of edits, trust me, you'll be saving yourself a huge headache later on. So that way you're not dealing with bone 1 through 5,000. It's worth renaming your bones. I promise. So to apply the armature, I went ahead and made a duplicate of our Behir, hid the others, and I applied any leftover modifiers that we still had going. And I'm gonna go ahead and you need the mesh selected first, and then we can go ahead and shift right click our armature, Control P, and we're gonna go ahead and do with automatic weights for our armature to form. Now, is that going to be absolutely perfect and do everything we want it to do? No, probably not. Is it going to be close? Hopefully. I really think it might be kind of close. We'll go ahead and test it out once it's done thinking. Don't worry if you get a spinny wheel because it does take a few seconds for it to apply. So don't be worried if it, takes a second to think about it. So I'm going to go ahead and I just want to test it first. So I'm going to go ahead and select our armature. And one way to check to make sure that it did apply is you'll notice under our armature here in the outliner that we have our Behir number 4 listed under here. We know it is parented to our armature. So that's always a good quick way just to check after you do select the parent that only one mesh got applied and all that fun stuff. So you can always check your outliner there. But with your armature selected, you can go down here to your menu and hit pose mode. Now I'm gonna just go into side view and let's move the neck and see what happens there. Okay, it does get pretty harsh right about here. So we'll probably wanna mess with the weights to make sure it does have a nice smooth transition. But overall, it seems to be working properly for this area. Let's test out the head. So if we grab this bone for the jaw and just grab it, you'll notice that we can move his mouth freely, but it's parented with that dotted line, so it's still moved up with the neck. So if we grab his head and rotate this down, you'll notice it's not connected to the jaw, so we can just, collapse him. It doesn't quite work. We'll probably want to first rotate here a little bit. Have both bones selected and rotate them both down. And we'll probably grab the jaw, pull that down like that. And again, it does get pretty sharp right there. So again, we'll want to smooth that out with some paint. Now, one other thing is that we could add to make posing the tail nicer, because right now if we grab this and rotate it, it's just we're gonna have to do everything all together. So even when it's applied, you should be able to add IK handles. To make the IK handle, all we're gonna do is go to the very last bone and we're just gonna go ahead, right click this, and we do need to be in edit mode. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to that. grab this end piece here. We're gonna hit E to extrude, and I'm gonna actually pull it off to the right so that way it's, you know, distinct that it's not part of the actual tail armature. I'm gonna go ahead and right click to select the whole bone, and we're actually going to separate this to clear the parent. So just hit Alt P and then hit clear parent. And if you want, you can even drag it over a little bit so that way it's, you know, visibly disconnected, but you don't have to. I'm just gonna drag it over to the right just so it's visibly disconnected and we don't see that little dotted line or anything. Now what we want to do is actually switch back to pose mode, and I'm going to select our very last tail piece here, and under our bone constraints tab we're going to go ahead and hit inverse kinematics, and with that we'll go ahead and select our armature for our target, and then it comes up with the bone that we're going to want to find our tail handle. Oh, which I forgot to rename this, so let's go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and put tail handle. Switch back to our other bone. Select our tail handle. Now we also want to adjust the chain length. I'm going to put this at 12. Actually, let's do 13 because that will adjust how many bones it's going to affect. You notice this yellow dotted line here, so where that stops is where it stops affecting. So we can actually change this to 14 to be all the way up to there. So now when we grab this bone here, it will affect everything, which actually, let's do this so that way we're not in wireframe view. We can rotate it, smush it, anything we need to. If you actually rotate, it's not going to affect anything. It's just going to affect with the movement. So just hit G and you can start moving this around freely. It's a little wonky. I don't know if it's because it's so long. You could probably get a better result with multiple IK handles. So yeah, I would probably recommend doing like one for like every 4 or something to get a really good pose going on. For now, I'm just gonna grab it, and actually I'm gonna grab it in top mode. That way I can just like drag it around all the way up there. Maybe hide the armature so you can just see how it's looking. You'll notice it's all the way bent down and everything. It actually has like a cool look to it. So now you just go through and start moving everything how you want. Start moving the arms and all that fun stuff. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this short tutorial. Again, if you want the fastest response, the fastest would probably be joining my Discord, and there is a whole Blender help section in there where me or someone else will be able to try and help you with any issues that you're having. Other than that, feel free to post in the comments below with any questions, concerns, requests, that kind of thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.